And next presenter is going to be Nicola Coss. Nicola has experience in youth and disability sectors, the voluntary and statutory capacity for over the last 15 years, with a special interest in neurodiversity supports. As I say, Nicola works for ADHD Ireland as National Service Development Manager and supporting families and individuals affected by the challenges of ADHD. Her role involves the development of services nationwide. So Nicola has driven basically to every county around Ireland in the last year and a half, or last 3 years. Facilitating ADHD educator facilitating training through primary and third level and the implementation of specialist programs. So Nicola's talk today is going to be on ADHD and medication. So looking forward to that because we've seen her for the last 3 years.
Thanks, Ken. Let's see now what we can do here. Let's get this back up. Okay. How's that? Can you see that?
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, and you can hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Brilliant. Well, guys, lovely to be here. Really what we're here today to talk about, Dr. Halliwell and Amanda have all spoken about ADHD and the traits and what can happen and not positively and negatively for ADHD. But when it comes to our mental health and this particular time, we are in a serious pandemic and ADHD in itself doesn't help the chemicals that are already in our brain and the deficits to move forward and help us cope with changes and crisis. So what we're going to chat about is we're going to go down and chat about how we feel the way we do, what we're feeling, and maybe we can put a plan together to see how we actually move forward. I thought this was quite good from Dr. Mate. He actually understands nearly ADHD from the very beginning. The existence of sensitive people is an advantage to the world. Oops, is an advantage to the world because this group is the best to express humanity's creative urges and needs. You know, it's at the end of the day, he understands the might of ADHD and he understands that the world isn't really ready. And we're trying to explain, we're trying to get out and harness it and put out as much awareness about the positives of ADHD to the people who have ADHD, to their employers, their families, and the schools, obviously, to try and pick up on everything that Ned and Amanda have been pushing on forward with. So we are going to talk about the symptoms that we actually feel. What is going on when we have poor mental health? Some people don't really understand, they have a bad day, but when does it get to a real problem? It can affect everything to do with your day, from your thinking and your feelings to your mood, how you actually relate with your work mates, your partners, and your daily functioning. You know, it can end up being diminished capacity that you can't even cope with your daily chores. So we have to see where it actually becomes a problem. Over 50% of adults with ADHD are affected with increased anxiety, depression, and unfortunately we move forward more into the pits of the self-harm, the eating disorders that we'll be talking about later with some of the other speakers, and suicide unfortunately does come into the remit as well. There's a lot of robust research about the chemical deficits of ADHD, you know, and we're naturally at a higher risk. And Dr. Patricia Quinn actually has found out that males are more externalizing disorders, very much so. And females, like Amanda was saying, you more, so we are certainly prone more to anxiety and depression. But the ADHD brain is architecturally and chemically different. And researchers suggest that, you know, people with ADHD are capable in the right environment if they're given the right environment at the end of the day. The hallmark of ADHD nervous system is not about attention deficit, but about inconsistent attention, too much attention, noticing absolutely everything. The neurotypical brain is to hear and do what they see, what needs to be done. You know, that's the normal neurotypical brain. It's an important based nervous system. But a person with ADHD has to get into the zone if they're interested. They will be, if they're intrigued by something, what they're doing. That's known as an interest-based nervous system. And, you know, they can't give attention to something that really doesn't interest them at all. And we understand this on a daily basis. When our interest engaged, our hyperfocus kicks in, and we can achieve to the highest levels in terms of depth and breadth of our creativity. You know, you have a good day, you have a really good day. If you're having a bad day, you have a really bad day. And that's what we're trying to find out today. What are the areas of your life that are causing you to have triggers to go into a deeper depth of depressions? It's during these precarious times that ADHD is a superpower, but it is a hindrance as well. You know, there's a lot of ADHD people that are working from home now at the moment, and they're expected to work fully functioning roles in an unsupervised environment. You know, they had the structure and supervision in work before, but also at the moment, there are also an awful lot of parents that are actually minding their ADHD kids, trying to motivate them, trying to get them to do their homework, get up for school, get their PE gear. The parents themselves have to be workers, have to be parents, and then try and do everything around the house, from the shopping, to remember the shopping list when they actually do go shopping, making the dinners, did they actually buy enough in the shopping for the dinners? Have the PE gear got out for the next day, but is it even clean? Is it still in the wash? Is it halfway down underneath the ironing basket? And the endless pit that is never come, the uniforms never even come out of it. It's a vicious circle of catch up for people with ADHD. And it's very hard to come out of that circle and to try and figure out what are the triggers that bring you down. I don't know about in the UK and across America, but over here in Ireland, the stigma in society is very much around, the norm is, whether you have a condition or not, is you have to wait until you have a mental breakdown before you actually apply for help, before you put your hand up and let people know that you do need help. And we need to change the narrative on that. We need to understand ADHD is an issue that sometimes we do need help. We do have a superpower, but we have to be able to use it, and we have to be able to turn around and look for help when we need it. We know our brains are going 90 miles an hour all the time, so it's the introverted effects of ADHD do cause a lot of negativity at the end of the day as well. There's positives and negatives to it. We do tend to overthink. We ruminate into our rabbit hole, as Dr. Halliwell said, and we procrastinate. You know, there's a lot of jobs that we say, oh yeah, we can do that. There's a new idea you have to go online, but unless you actually can get up, put it into practice, and put some focus into the detail, it'll never get off the ground. But unfortunately, we are living in a crisis at the moment, and certainly a lot of people have come to us and said, second time round, it does seem an awful lot worse. They know what to expect, I think it is this time. And crisis doesn't really help an already overloaded ADHD brain. But we're going to feel overwhelmed and panicked and guilty of what we can and can't do. A lot of the time it's what we didn't get to do. We're always beating ourselves up, particularly women, when it comes to the mistakes they made, the things they didn't get to do, instead of actually looking positively at their life. We'll always look at the failures and the isolation. But the only thing is, guys, look, certainly with ADHD Ireland and the support groups that we have for parents, for adults and the partners of people with ADHD, you're not alone. You know, we are there. There are so many other organizations across the UK and across America, across the world, full stop. So you may have to put your hand up. You may have to say, yes, I have ADHD, but we're there to catch your hand and see what more we can actually do to help you. There's a lot of research around positive approach does actually help ADHD. Pippa Simone suggests that if you actually choose to understand ADHD as a difference rather than a deficit and change the negative to a positive, impulsivity automatically changes to spontaneity. Do you know, you've got your hyperactivity becomes enthusiasm and energy. We all like to bitch and moan and wallow in ourselves when things go wrong, but unfortunately we can't afford to do that as ADHDers. If we let the focus slip to the negative aspects of our experiences, we have a danger of moving into that rumination and that rabbit hole. And it increases our stress chemical like cortisol. So it's all around, it's not good for us. The story we tell ourselves is actually very powerful, you know, and it has a powerful effect on our inner voice. If you actually work on self-appreciation, if you work on self-appreciation, it feeds into the strengths and the successes that women and men, obviously, I'm a bit biased today, that the more positivity you feel, the more positivity you talk about, the more you will actually see. You know, women, as we said earlier, you know, they see a lot of the mistakes that they make all the time, you know, instead of actually making a concerted effort to actually see more positivity in their lives. And it does, and it will pay off. If you learn your strengths, we can flourish if we focus on our positives. And individuals with ADHD are highly successful when they're given the right environment, either in schools or in their employment, and of course in relationships. It all helps to build better life outcomes at the end of the day. If we focus on what isn't working, and kind of focus on more on what is working. Pick up on the small things. It might be you changed your bed and actually had it done before you actually left the house today. That's a small win. That's a win to start the day. You've had 7 other days with no wins, and you're going into a day with no real focus. So it's little small wins, and good focus. Well, the more it is good, you will find more and more little things that will be. You'll see the birds, and you come into it. Nature will come into play during the day as well. But it's very much about stimulating feel-good chemicals. You know, you want your dopamine and serotonin buzzing around, and then it changes the way you feel. But self-care is very much all about exercising, as everyone else has said earlier. If you exercise your mind as well as your body, you know, you get your sleep, it makes a massive difference to the way life will be during that particular day, at least. Nature, a lot of our guys at the sport group say nature is one of the many pastimes that it's free, it's there, and it's in abundance. We just don't take enough appreciation of it these days, and I think it's the one thing that a lot of ADHDers have actually said. So it's a little tip. A lot of people just stay in and watch television these days, but just get out as much as you can in nature with you and your family. It does actually help the mood. It starts it off, at least. ADHD, we do have many strengths in crisis, you know, and it does help to have ADHD where we have loads of perseverance, and we're creative no matter what's going on. You can work from home. There are the advantages to it. And lots of people are, yes, absolutely, their success is mainly down to ADHD. But you do have to worry about, there are days that are not good. So what do we do? Small structures can help you cope with life, and to understand really at the end of the day, you to make a plan, because the less stress you have, the more productivity, you know, that you will have in your day. So really, I'm going to fly through the rest of this because I know you'll be able to get the presentation on the recording, but it's very much around a checklist for yourself. What to do now. It's set 50 minutes aside for yourself. You know, you say that and you say, yeah, I do that anyway. A lot of people don't. If you actually work it out, you don't actually spend 15 minutes doing absolutely nothing. You might make a cup of tea and be on the phone, but you don't actually spend 15 minutes sitting to think about how you're feeling, what you've done today, and how you can actually change the way something, if it was a negative path, that change the way that happens. Do your research, start to understand yourself and your emotions and why you feel the way you do. Start figuring out what your triggers are. Learn the warning signs and try and act earlier before they get into panic mode. Prepare your crisis exit plan, and you can only do this. You know, this is the personal thing. It's to you. I can only give you a couple of tips to help you out. Know when it's okay to ask for help. Do you know? Because at the end of the day, there's lots of support out there, be it a life coach, CBT, we've got professionals, you've got all the support groups, and we've awareness talks. But really it's about preparation, identifying your problems, figuring out how to try and stop it before it happens. But also the other thing is sometimes it happens. Sometimes, like one of the mothers told me the other day, she was saying that she started screaming at the child when he came down in his iron shirt. And it upset the whole day. It upset the child going to school, it upset her and the other siblings. And it was only when the child got out of the car and she had time to stop and pause, she actually realized, she said, I wasn't actually angry at the child at all. The child had done absolutely nothing wrong. I was actually anxious and angry at myself from the fact that I wasn't a good mother. I didn't have his shirt ironed the night before, and that I shouldn't have actually taken it out on him. And we both should have had a better day ahead of ourselves if I'd have actually ironed that shirt. And that's sometimes, it's hard to do. It does take a few minutes to do, but it is really important to try and label it. She labeled it, she wasn't angry at him, she was angry at herself. But anxiety in itself is not always about crying on the floor, having meltdowns every day. There's little triggers that are happening maybe over a week, and you have to learn to label these, to figure out what these are and to be aware of them. You know, this is quite a busy slide now, and I'm sorry about that, but if we even focus just on the thoughts alone, you know, we've all gone through phases where, you know, you think something's going to happen, but it's when they start to get more serious and more regular and a daily occurrence that you need to start looking at how to move forward and make more of a plan. You know, people get caught in a vicious circle of that, I'm not going to be able to cope with this. You know, what if I don't get this right? What would people think of me? I don't think I'll be able to do this. I need to escape from this. And these little signs, they, little by little, you know, over the days, can actually lead in the wrong direction. But we have to be able to label them. The emotions that are coming from these thoughts, you're thinking about something's going awful, it's going to happen, but it's in the future. You don't even know what's going to happen, but you're anxious about that. You're scared, you're nervous, and you're irritable. You're taking it out on everybody. You know, it's not always the fact that it's something very obvious. Sometimes it can be, as one of the girls said to me the other day, sometimes it's just about not being able to sort out little small mistakes. They're doing 10 letters and they make a mistake in every single one of them. It can be the vicious circle of coming up with new ideas, like Dr. Halliwell said, coming up with new ideas but not committing to any one, and that's not usually your case. It's about learning about yourself. You might have 100 tabs open on your desktop and you're just not bothered to close them off. It's little triggers and you need to learn these. The physical symptoms themselves, you know, your heart beats faster, it can be tension, you know yourself when you're having a bad day, you are tense, and your shoulders crunch up. It's dizziness, it's very much, sorry, we're after. You can get dizzy, you're hot and sweaty, and tunnel vision, basically all the physical symptoms that are caused by, a lot of people think it's only my head, it's only in my head, but it's actually physically affecting you. But the other behaviors at the end of the day that can also, you have to understand, are part of your anxiety is you're avoiding situations, you're avoiding people, you're not going to work, you're avoiding the kids. There's something causing you to, and what is that? What's that reason? What is behind you not wanting to go to that situation? Excessively smoking, talking, eating. You know, a lot of people go and they eat a whole packet of biscuits, but they might do it 3 times a day. You know, arguing with everybody, talking or doing things faster, over or under eating. These are all triggers and it's things that you need to learn yourself. Steps, I understand, I'm going, I can see you, Tricia. Recognize the signs of anxiety and overwhelm, but you need to stop and think. Just stop, like the mother. It wasn't the child. At the end of the day, it was her. She was anxious. She needs to label it. She stopped. She was thinking about it. What was it? She labeled it. Yeah, I was anxious. I didn't have things ready. I'm not happy with myself. I need to sort that for the next morning. Can a plan that you have put in place for yourself work this time, or do you need more help? And learn to say no. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. But there's a couple of things you can do for yourself to get yourself to that better place on a daily basis. You know, lack of sleep, you know, it's going to affect your whole day. It's going to affect the next day as well. Sleep deprivation really does increase the symptoms of ADHD negatively. Small little things, as I said earlier, just even making the bed can be something small that you've achieved to move forward. Set some home routines, get the kids' things ready at night time. Avoid caffeine. It's really good to exercise, but not late in the evening. I had a couple of girls like that. They will do a late course and they're buzzing around the room late at night. You know, anything late at night, be it on the phone, be it exercise or having your teas and coffees, they're a no-no at too late at night anyway. But you've got to shift the power. At the end of the day, you've got to realize that you have a certain amount of things that you have to do today. There's so much you can do, but when you're not in a good place, you're not 100%, something has got to give. You do not need to clean that fridge that you haven't even touched in 3 months. It doesn't have to be done today. Just because you feel it needs to be done today, that's your anxiety. So stop, think, leave the fridge, give yourself your cup of tea, and then move forward with the rest of your plans for the day. Write down what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And maybe you've been speaking to a therapist and they've actually given you a couple of ideas as well. Write them down so you remember them as you're moving through. And shifting the power really is about adjusting the balance, adjusting what needs to be done, what really needs to be done versus what you can leave. And you can't drop everything, obviously, because life is life, but you do have to make time for you. Learn to say no. It goes without saying. We always overcommit. And the impulsively needs you to say that you're going to do 3 things in the one day. And if you have it in 4 different diaries, you'll never really know what you're actually doing on any one day. But it's really important to stop, check your schedule first before agreeing to do something new, especially if it's trying to do something for work or taking on something extra with one of the neighbours. Stop and think. Just really going to go through a couple of tips for you, and if it's only a piece of paper and a pen, just write down one of them. You know, if you've all done courses and you've all read books, but have you ever really put any one little thing into play? If you only read one book, I had to do this. If you only read one book, do read Driven to Distraction by Dr. Halwa. It's a fantastic book. And only one YouTube video. If you only ever look at one in all the hundreds that are out there, look at Jess McCabe, How to ADHD. Productivity sessions are absolutely fantastic. Claire Toomey does them here in ADHD Ireland, and they're about beating procrastination, getting things done in a short period of time, and you set yourself a task. It may be that you're only going to declutter a room. You come in, you do your 2 hours, it's broken down into a couple of sessions, and that you actually, by the end of that class, you have broken the back of that room anyway when it comes to decluttering. Other guys come in and do their management reports, and they break it down into the 3 chunks, and they get a little bit more done than they would have done all week in work. Cognitive behavioral therapy, of course, it helps for anxiety. It can help with how you view a situation, how you look at your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and of course, that's all interlinked with how you interact with everybody else. CBT, it uses practical strategies to help you make changes that are positive and realistic. These are all just ideas of different things that are out there that you can put your hand to help you on your plan, really, to put your own personal plan into place. Mindfulness, recent research data has shown that meditation is not proven to be of any real significant benefit to people with ADHD, but Zach Powers, he has actually said that hold on now, sorry, I can't see with this. When we think differently, we find different ways to escape the prison of our fears and isolation. Mindfulness makes more of an impact over traditional meditation in the lives of people with ADHD because it suits a wandering mind. You know, it accommodates wandering. And he also says that body scans work well as well. So for yourselves, there's just extra things that can actually help put into your week for yourself to give you some time to yourself. If you only implement one tip, decide what to tackle first. Prioritize. If it's your shopping list, collecting the kids and doing that room, put them in that order. Take things one step at a time. Just allow yourself the time because it's the nature of ADHD a lot of the time just to throw the whole hat at it, go in, start something, you start with the wrong thing, and realistically you should have started with the floor first before you actually started over in the bedroom. So take things one step at a time and work through programs, work through the things that are the problems that you're actually working with. Stay on task. Set aside daily time for organisation. Before the day even starts, we set aside just 5 minutes to clear the desk, clear the kitchen counter, clear whatever it is that's going to be your distraction to get you started with your morning productivity. Whatever it is, you're going to start your report, clear your desk. Use colours and lists. A lot of adults with their support group have actually said that they work really well when it comes to segregating different jobs, different programs, different reports in their folders, and prioritise what's important. Use timers, you know, goes without saying, guys, you know, ADHD in itself, you have no sense of time. Speaking of which, no sense of time. And give yourself more time than you need because something always lasts longer with someone with ADHD. They never have it estimated correctly. And some of the tips people have said that if you actually have an appointment for 5 o'clock, set your alarms for 15 minutes before that. Always set it in your diary that it's 15 minutes before that as well. So you're always on time and you have your reminder set up no matter what it is in the diary. Put an alarm at least on twice before you actually, 10 minutes before and 20 minutes before the actual event. But you just can't express how much family time and meeting others, even I know in this COVID time it's very hard, but even connecting online, it's really, really important. Keep the connection with your support groups, keep connection with your family, and keep your connection with your friends. As Dr. Halliwell said, it's invaluable for the ADHD mind. we are in the middle of a pandemic. So at the end of the day, there's nothing more we can do. We are in the middle of it. And it is a massive trigger for the escalation of mental health problems. And as we said earlier, you know, we're chemically destined to have our bad days. But it is possible to minimize the impact of stress on our lives. ADHD is a superpower if we can control it. So it's important to identify the symptoms, identify what your triggers are, what the issues are, and put the plan into place to cope with that. Eat healthily, exercise regularly, and like Amanda was saying, find something you actually like doing. But connecting online is really, really important. And finding something that you're actually interested in. When it comes to productive activities, the productivity courses really, really work very well for doing everything and anything. Mindfulness helps, and it's just try something different, even if it's only once. Positive self-talk, you know, it acts as a protective shield. It keeps your mind active and it keeps it in a positive place. But at the end of the day, be aware that if it is getting to a stage that it's a regular occurrence on a daily occurrence, that you're not able to cope, it's time to talk to somebody. But also just to throw in really quickly, just to be aware for others too. If you have that plan in place, you have seen these ideas, you've been thinking about yourself, have a look at your kids, have a look at your partner, have a chat to your friends. You know, sometimes the strategy for some mammies that turn around and say, I've had a really bad day, they pick up the phone to their friend, they pick up a bar of chocolate, they sit down and watch their favorite series on telly. So it's finding what you're but look for the crisis in friends. Put your hand out, because you never know, you could be that person one day. Thank you. Any questions, guys?
Okay, well, thanks very much for that, Nicola. And I say, in terms of ourselves, you know, it's the practical stuff that's very important on how to do this. So really appreciate that. Justin said there was one question here just now. We only just have a really 2 minutes before we need to wrap up for 4 o'clock. It was around trips for parents.
Yeah, well, basically, yeah, time-wise. Yeah, it was really, yeah, I kind of skipped over that. Really for parents, it's about having a morning and evening routine. You know, it's about getting all the PE gear, putting the keys in the one place, having the PE gear and the kids' uniforms out the night before. And if you can grab the lunches, the school bags, the coats and the keys, put them all to the front door. Everything, if that's all done at night time, you give yourself 10 minutes extra early in the morning before the kids get up, set the alarm 10-15 minutes earlier, have your time for your cup of tea, you're calm, you know the uniforms are ready, you know the stuff is at the door, nobody's going to forget the PE gear. That'll sort the day out. So the morning and evening routines are very important to parents, and give time for themselves. That's the biggest issue. What else can you say? Make a schedule of the activities. There's so many things going on, even during COVID. There's football on one night and there's gymnastics on another. Just make a schedule, put it on the fridge. So it's not only for yourself, but it's also for your kids. So everyone's not under any stress, and it de-stresses the family once you can see it on the wall.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you very much for that. Ken? Yeah, that's brilliant. Before we're just pushing up against the clock here, like everyone else, you know, I'm going to have my dinner now very shortly. And we're back at 6 o'clock. So just to let everybody, thank you very much. You know, we've 74 questions in the Q&A there below. We're doing our best to get through as many as we can. We'll try and get through them later on. And just to let you know, we're back at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, we have Emma Weaver, who's the Director of Early Years Services at the ADHD Foundation. And her talk is what parents need to know. So it's going to be very practical. 6:30, we have Dr. Finian Fallion. He'll be talking about ADHD and obesity. And I know just Nicola and Amanda have talked about this earlier as a topic, and it is one that is increasingly important, and the correlation and the overlap between ADHD and eating disorders. So that's going to be very interesting. We've Neve Parsons from Bodywise, which is the Irish charity for eating disorders. And then we've seen Ned already, and Ned's going to be back again. Ned's coming back for another hour, and he's going to do a talk from 7 o'clock, and that'll be the family and ADHD. And we leave an awful lot more time for questions on the next one. And hopefully we'll wrap at 8 o'clock. I have to say, and just for myself, and I hope that people are listening to agree with this, I really enjoyed all those presentations we've seen this afternoon. And I'm sure that when we come back at 6 o'clock, the presentations will be good. And we look forward to talking to you again then. Thank you very much.